Tell me if this has happened to you before. You create an assignment and you give students very clear, very specific instructions. These could be instructions, on Canvas for an assignment that they're going to do digitally, or it could be verbal instructions that you give students right there in class. And then it's time for them to get started, and all of a sudden, here come the questions. And the students are all asking you, so what am I supposed to do again? Or maybe they go through and they do the assignment and they've left out several key things, and it just makes you so frustrated because you're going, I had all of this stuff in the instructions. Why didn't you see the instructions? And they didn't take the time to go through and look at them and digest them. And see, I think there's sometimes a difference between what we give students as instructions and what they take away from them. And the difference between okay instructions and great instructions can narrow that gap a long way. I really believe that great instructions can help students get clear about their work. It helps them to get right to work without having to ask any questions, without any uncertainty. And whenever students get used to getting those good instructions and knowing where to find them and being able to get going, that starts to instill these good habits in them. They see the assignment, they know clearly what they're supposed to do, and then they get right to work. And when they get right to work, we gain back instructional minutes, those precious instructional minutes where the students aren't confused, where they aren't unclear. And so the nice thing about having a learning management system like Canvas is that we have lots of ways to do great instructions, and several of those are built right into the platform. But then there are some that just take a little shift from what we're already doing that can turn those instructions from good to great. And so we're going to take a look at some of those strategies that you can put into practice right now. Some things that maybe you're already doing, or some things that maybe you thought, oh man, why didn't I ever think of that? And I think it's really easy for students to get frustrated with those students that don't read their instructions clearly. But the reality is that we as adults, we do it too. And so if we want students not to skip through those instructions, there are some things that we can do. So for one, this is a little one. This is a little simple one and something that you can put into practice right away. Think about if you do text instructions, if you type out what students are supposed to do you leave all of those instructions as one big paragraph? Because if you do, there's a chance that students might skip over them. See, you start to look at the best practices for articles online. You start to look at the best practices for sending emails, especially for people who use emails as marketing and they want people to be able to read their things. One of those best practices to make it easier for anybody to be able to read something online is to space that text out with lots of returns in between paragraphs. And this is something that we can carry over to our assignments on learning management systems too. So if you've written, now for the the sort of hardcore English writing type of people that are saying, hey, paragraphs should be complete thoughts and then you should move on. The reality is that those paragraphs, and especially if you leave a blank line in between them, they create visual breathing room. They create some spaces where our eyes sort of rest, and it makes it easier for us to be able to advance through them. So even if all of your instructions are one complete thought and you feel like they should be in that one paragraph, maybe what you do is you get through one or two sentences and then you hit return twice, return, which leaves that little blank line. And when you start to spread it out like that, it makes it easier for our eyes to process and for our brains to process. That's just one little thing that you can do. Here's another little thing that you may or may not have thought of that can really work. And that is to use emojis in your descriptions, and even emojis in the titles of your assignments. Now, if you're hearing this and you're thinking, yeah, but why would I want to just decorate my instructions with emojis? What good does that do? There are a handful of ways that we can use them that make it easier for our brains to process what we're seeing. So, for instance, in the title of your assignment, sometimes we can use emojis as a sort of categorization feature. So for instance, when I was teaching high school Spanish, a lot of times we would have writing assignments and we would have speaking assignments. And then we would have reading comprehension assignments. There's a variety of different things that we would do. And so in my learning management system, if I were to tag each one of those assignments with an emoji related to the kind of assignment that it's going to be, then students can wrap their brains around what they're seeing before they even open the assignment up. And so, I might do, for a speaking assignment, I might do a little speech bubble right at the beginning of that title. If it were a listening assignment, I could put an ear. If it's a reading assignment, I could put a book. And if I'm consistent with that all throughout, and then let's say I have quizzes or tests, and I might do the little green check mark on that one. If I'm consistent all the way throughout, then what that means is that they're going to be able to scroll through my assignments and just visually immediately see that, they know what kind of assignment that's going to be. So it's just another way to make it easier to find what you're looking for. Now, this can come down into the directions too. So within the directions, if you start out a paragraph with an emoji that sort of summarizes what you're talking about in the paragraph, again, that's another way to get to the visual side of your brain and helps our students to process what's coming next. There's this research called dual coding theory that talks about how our brains process images differently than they process text. So if we have a little bit of image and text together, it's going to be easier for them to get what's coming. And then if they need to scan through things, they're able to process it a little bit easier. Emojis also make for fun bulleted lists. So yeah, you could use the bullet points in your rich text editor in your assignment. Or you could use the emojis. Sometimes I like to use the pointing finger as my bulleted list. And so, instead of using those bullet points, maybe use emojis. It's pretty easy to add those too, by the way. If you're creating an assignment through the Canvas mobile app, of course, your cell phone or your tablet, whatever it is you're using, probably already has emojis on it. And so it's probably pretty easy to do. If you're using a Windows laptop, hold in the window key and push period. That's going to display an emoji keyboard. That's a keyboard shortcut I use pretty much every day, all throughout the day. If you're using a Mac, if you hold in Command, Control, and then push the space key, like the space bar, that'll bring up an emoji keyboard. And then if you're using a Chromebook, you can just right click in the text box where you want to add the emojis, and there should be a little option up at the top of the menu that says emoji, and so you can jump right up there. So that's yet another little bitty thing that we can do to make those instructions easier to process so students get them the first time. Here's another one, and this is a big one. That is to record video or audio as your instructions. If you've never thought about this before, it makes perfect sense because students a lot of times are used to hearing instructions from the teacher in a verbal way and then being able to see them. And so recording it in audio and video just makes sense. Now, of course, the nice thing about Canvas is that we have the ability to record audio and video natively. So you can certainly just do a video recording of yourself talking to the camera, kind of like this, to give students an idea of what they need. And then when they hear it out of your own voice in your own words, that sometimes makes it a little bit easier. But we can even be a little bit clearer by using a screen recording tool that will let them see on the screen what it is that they're supposed to be doing. So if you've never considered doing instructions with a screen recording tool, this may be a big shift that you want to make. So you've got tools like Screencastify, which is an extension for the Google Chrome web browser that will record your screen. You've got Loom, which will do the same. You've also got Flipgrid. Flipgrid, a lot of times people think of it as a video response tool for students, but Flipgrid will also do screen recording. And then once you're done recording that, you're able to provide students a link to your video. The best way to do it in Flipgrid, by the way, is to use the Shorts tab. Shorts is a segment of Flipgrid that's made for teachers. If you just need to record a video to show your students, Shorts let you create these short videos and then just grab a link and share it with students. And so with either of those, or any of those, you're able to record your screen and show students exactly what they need to see. So using those emojis, using those screen recording tools, and then spacing our instructions out. All of those things are simple things that we can do, little small adjustments that make our instructions easier to process for our students.